Hello, chasers! As business owners, we generally tend to give more weight and focus on leading our team's efforts to achieve financial results. However, in today's world, we need to have a much broader approach to leadership that extends beyond the traditional focus on financial performance and maximising profits. Leadership standards that uphold the importance of ethical, sustainable, and socially responsible practices in business are equally, if not more important for a business to succeed in the long term. In this episode, we're thrilled to have my esteemed colleague Daimien Patterson join us to discuss his groundbreaking work in leadership development. I'm your host, Chris Becks, a financial and business advisor with over 40 years' experience and the founder of the multi-award-winning CBEX Business Solutions for Good. Daimien Patterson, author of the acclaimed book Real Leadership, the Handbook, is a renowned leadership coach and consultant with a wealth of experience in the corporate world and the Australian Defence Force. His insights into authentic leadership, vulnerability and empathy have resonated with leaders across industries. In this episode, we'll delve into the core principles of leadership, why a focus beyond profits is critical to longevity, and explore how you can become a more effective and inspiring leader, someone who leads with purpose, passion, and impact. Let's dive into this episode. Thanks for joining us on the Chasers Channel podcast today.
Pleasure to be here.
So that our chasers get to know a little about you, here are some warm-up questions that need a answer to. Number one, morning, noon, or night, your favourite time?
Probably the night time. Yes. I'm slow out of bed, mate. That's for sure.
Fair enough. Rare, medium rare, or well done?
Medium well. Can I say that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Drink of choice, red or white?
White.
What's the first thing you think of if I say tomato?
Tomato sauce. Or the ultimate tomato.
Yeah, that's it. Some people have actually responded tomato. Last interesting person you met?
Oh, yeah. So many. The guy who founded McDonald's in Australia comes to mind. Yeah, he was fascinating.
Right. Okay. Leader or follower?
Leader.
Very, very apt for this topic. Superman or Batman?
Batman.
Science or spirituality?
Science.
Vegan or meat?
Meat.
What chore do you hate doing the most?
The dishes.
Are you outsourcing those?
Of course. I'm the king of outsourcing.
What's better, experience or studying?
Experience.
Sunset or sunrise?
Sunset.
Last band or artist you listen to?
So many all the time. Probably Tool. Yeah.
Childhood or adulthood?
Childhood was so much better.
It's hard adulting, isn't it? Nickname?
Damo.
Awesome. And finally, our fast five, which are a bit more personal. Where did you grow up?
Western suburbs of Sydney.
And what is your favourite book?
My favourite book is About Face by David Hackworth.
And what is one of your superpowers?
Bite off more than I can chew and chew it anyway.
What is something you wished you knew as a 20-year-old?
I think I wish I knew more about business back then.
Yeah. And what is something you are grateful for?
I think I'm really grateful for the people I have around me, and I think that's something we all need to remember is we can only achieve so much on our own. And when people are, the people I have around me are the thing I'm most grateful for.
Fantastic. That's great, Damo. Thanks for sharing. Now let's dive straight into the topic of leadership beyond the bottom line. leadership is much more than a position someone holds in an organisation or their title, and there's much more to do with the behaviours and actions that inspire those around them to succeed. At a recent conference we attended in Cebu, the Philippines, where you also spoke, you provided the Army definition of leadership. Can you share that with our listeners, as that'll set the scene for what it means to be a leader?
Yeah, the Army definition of leadership is the art of gaining the willful obedience of the team to achieve the team or organizational goal, or words to that effect. So it's a very good definition for leadership, and it's broken into a few elements. The first is the word art. It's an art form, and there's arts and there's science, right? Science is black and white, on, off, yes, no. Whereas an art is in the eye of the beholder. And I think the key point about that in the definition there is that different people want to be led different ways, and as a leader, you need to be adaptable, and you need to have that emotional intelligence to sense the way people want to be led and adjust your approach to each person in your team. You can't just lead everyone in one way. So it's an art. And I think that's really important. And then how do you get good at an art? Is you practice. Because a lot of your judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from practice. So it's an art. The second key part of that is the willful obedience or fellowship. Willful fellowship is probably a better word, less than obedience. But and that is, people are doing things because they want to do things for you, because something about you that they like and that they're bought into. They have your confidence, or you have their confidence, and they know that if they follow you, they're going to be successful. The organisation is going to succeed. So willfully. Now, I think a lot of people hide behind their authority and flex their authority to get what they want from their people. But what they need to realise is that's only going to go so far, because when you're not watching, people are just going to do whatever they want to do. Unless they truly feel loyal to you and inspired by you and want to follow you, they're not always going to do the right thing. And I think a lot of people have a high opinion of their abilities as leaders. Surface, they're probably good managers, but atrocious leaders, And my question to anyone who's listening to this, contemplating whether they're a good leader or not, is this: if we took away all the authority that you have, if we took away your ability to fire people, for example, and said you cannot fire them, whether you like it or not, you cannot fire them. How good would you be a leader then? And you would probably completely change your entire approach. The willful fellowship is a very important, and that's how I think a lot of people get confused what leadership really is. And right there is the crux of it. And then the team or organizational goal is really important. So whatever it is, whether you're the captain of your footy club, or the president of your local not-for-profit group, or the director of your business, or the CEO of a corporation, you have been put there by someone else, or other people, or someone's else, a group of people, you've elected or nominated or appointed, and you've been put there to run that organization well. Not to be Mr. Popularity, Mrs. Popularity, not to fulfill your own personal needs. You've been put there to deliver the outcome that organization is trying to achieve. And that is critical as well, that we must remind ourselves. So why are you there? You're there to achieve the team or organizational goal, whatever that is. Lead the team to victory, however that victory is defined. So it's an art of gaining the willful fellowship to achieve the team or organizational goal. And I think once people realize that, their mindset and what they need to do as a leader becomes quite clear.
That's a great way to start, because I think in business, we really need to be able to understand the different personalities of the team members we've got, because as you mentioned, everyone is motivated by different means and incentives. And of course, getting the best out of them requires that understanding. Okay, so what are the key elements of an effective team structure, and how can business leaders implement them?
Okay, this is a great question. One of my pillars for running a successful business is a team structure. And I thought about this a lot when I was in the Army for 14 years, and from 18 years of age to 32, and then and I had a lot of leadership early in life. And then I went into business, and I've been in business for another 14 years now. I'm 46 now. But what I realized, one thing the Army does very well is it's built on teams of teams of teams. And, you know, 3 sections make a platoon, and 3 platoons make a company. And, it's really, really important in every business that you organize your people into teams. And there's a number of reasons for that. The first reason for that is that when people will work 3 times harder when they are held accountable to a team, when there is a team result, not an individual result.
Yeah.
That has been sought after. So if you've got salespeople, for example, they will always sell more if they're in a team where they have a team target rather than when they're in where individuals chasing an individual target.
Yep.
Because people do not want to let down other people. They'll let themselves down before they let anyone else down, which is quite odd. And I'm reminded of a little story whenever I talk about this to people. I remember when I was in the Army, I turned up to this physical training session one day, and there was 150 people there and only one physical trainer. They call them PTIs, physical training instructor. And I thought to myself, this bloke's got a challenge. You know, he's got 150 people to run a session. And the first thing this guy did was he divided everyone into groups of 3.
Right.
So he reduced his management liability from 150 direct reports to 50, right?
Yep.
So put him in groups of 3. And then that was great. And then he had a control measure. And the base we were in, there's a ring road around the base, which is 5.5 kilometers around. And he said, right, today we're going to run the ring road, but as teams, and you must stick together as a team. He said, the first team back will do 0 push-ups. The next team back will do 2 push-ups. The next team back will do 4. And as you finish to the finish line, I'll tell you how many push-ups you've got to do. Last team back will do 100 push-ups. And at that moment, I knew that I was going to run as hard as I'd ever run in my entire life, because there was no way that I was going to make the other 2 guys in my team do any more push-ups than necessary.
Yeah.
And I did, and I pushed myself so hard that I was dry reaching at the end, and I had the taste of blood in my mouth.
Yeah.
You know, that because I pushed myself so hard. And it illustrates the point that if you put your people into teams, you're going to get more productivity out, right? And then if you really want to get take that to the next level, have your teams competing against each other for results.
Okay.
You know, because then what happens, you get that peer acceptance pressure.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit of gentle pressure is like, obviously we don't want to let it get out of hand and have bastardization or bullying, but you know, so that's really important. That's the first reason why a team's so important, because you're going to get exponential productivity.
Before you go on, so how many push-ups did you end up doing?
I think we did about 30. I think we were sort of 1/3 of the way in the pack.
Good
and
stuff.
I was apologizing to them as well, because I was the slowest runner out of the 3 of us. The second reason why teams are so important is because it sets people up for success. So when you first join the organization, you don't really know what you're doing. So if you could go into a team where there's an experienced team leader who knows how to do everything, and you can come in as a junior member of the team, it sets you up for success. And the team leader is going to teach you, and they're going to do the on-the-job training and mentoring, and they're going to give you the simpler things to do first, and you're going to get them done. And that's going to help the team leader, because then the team leader's got someone to delegate the simple stuff to, so they can focus on the high-function, high-skill tasks that get biggest results. And then people have an opportunity to succeed. Not only that, it's good for you because you get to grow people to be leaders as well. So not only are teams far more productive, but teams also set people up for success. And it's really important that everyone succeeds, because if you think about the amount of effort and money and time you put into recruiting somebody and bringing them into your business and then training them and things like that, why would you do it any other way? You know? And I remember I had a situation where a few years ago, I had sales team in my company, my property investment company. I had 3 teams of 3, and then I had 3 individuals who didn't want to be in teams. And in my own inexperience, they had said to me, no, I want to be on my own. I work better alone, quote unquote. And I have a particular market I want to go after. And I was like, okay, great. You go your hardest. In 6 months, right, those 3 people sold 1 investment property between them. And that was one guy sold it to his mate. That was it. In 6 months, they didn't make $1. Meanwhile, the 3 teams of 3 did extremely well. And the reason why is those 3 teams had team leaders who had been with the company for time, had a process, had someone to delegate to, but they also had that expectation on each other to get a result. And so it's night and day. Teams, you must have teams.
One of the truly successful ways of achieving the goals of a business is to be in sync with the growth and the fulfillment that motivated members are looking for. So how can career models be designed to align with both the organisational goals and employees' growth?
Right, really good question. So career models are really interesting, and the Defence Force does career models really well. So when you join the Defence Force, you pick a trade, you know, and you don't really, you kind of like, oh yeah, that'd be nice. I'd like to drive a tank, or I'd like to, you know, be in the engineers and blow things and blow up bridges and stuff. But you don't really know much more than that. But when you join, they say to you, here is your career model, and they give it to you, and they say you start here, and they have ranks, and different ranks do different jobs, and they lay it all out for you, and then they give you a future for yourself, a vision. And then you go, wow, okay, that's what I've got to do. And what was really interesting about that when I reflect on it is people just tend to default to that model that's given to them, you know. And then you go to a party and people say, what do you do? And you say, oh, I'm an engineer in the army, or I'm a helicopter pilot, or whatever. And they go, oh, wow, that's interesting, you know, but they give you that model. Now, in a civilian business, if you don't give people a career model, then what are they going to do? They're going to make their own. Right? And if they don't see the future in your organization, then they're going to stick around for a while, and then they're going to get bored, and then they're going to leave, right? And they're going to go and seek an advancement elsewhere. And I remember actually earlier this year, I went to Florida and I attended the Grant Cardone 10X conference.
Oh, yeah.
And it was he's an interesting fella, Grant Cardone. If you, he's certainly very successful. He's a controversial figure at times. But I got to ask him one question out of the thousands of people there. On the 4th day, I managed to get my question in. And it was, how do you keep your stars? How do you keep your superstars? Because I had some people who had come in at the base level, and I'd identified their potential and talent, and I taught them. And I thought, this is great. I'll teach these guys, and they'll work for me and make the company lots of money. Then what happened is they end up leaving. And then a lot of them setting up in direct competition to me. And I thought, geez, I'm an idiot. I've now trained my competition. You know. And I said to him, I said, what is it that, you know, you got to do with these people? Do you need to give them shares? He goes, no. I said, do you need to pay them bonus? He goes, no. And he goes, tell me the story. And I told him the story about one of the primary people who had done this to me. I, you know, got the guy, pulled him out of the gutter and rebuilt him. And, you know, and then, and he did so well. And he's now my biggest competitor. And he said to me, he said the reason that guy left is because your vision for the company and the opportunities that you had painted for him were not as big as the vision he had for himself. And I was like, mind blown. And I thought, absolutely. And it's the same that I would have had, you know. So if you want to keep your people, particularly your high-functioning, result-getting, ambitious people, you need to have a vision for your company that is going to, where they see that they can just stay with you and achieve everything they want to achieve, they'll achieve by staying with you. If you don't have that, they will leave you. And you can't begrudge them for that. You know. And when I came back from that conference, I thought, right, infinite growth is now our goal. So we now, and people are like, what do you mean by that? I was like, we'll just keep growing. And but we'll do it sustainably. So not a timeline-based growth path, but a conditions-based growth path. So we want to grow a company of teams, and we want to increase the number of leads every month, and we want to increase the number of sales teams we've got to deal with those leads, and we want to build the operations capacity to deliver what's sold in whatever business that is, you know. And we design the whole thing. And so basically, I call it raising the army. We're raising an army. We have infinite growth. And we have our intermediate targets, which is like the next bound. We want to be at this many teams with this many leads and this much revenue and this many sales. And then once we achieve that, we'll then work out how we're going to get to the next level and the next level. But I say to all my people now, there is no limit. I want you with me for life, and I want you my goal for all of you is for that one day you'll be living in a mansion,
Yep.
driving your favorite car, having 2 overseas holidays a year. And I want you to be able to do, but we need to build this business so that we can get it to the point where it can afford to pay you that much money. And I want you to be part of it, you know. And then I say to them, we're all better off together than we are in isolation, and you all know that, you know. And so back to your original question about career models, if you have an unlimited growth plan, then you can paint a career model for them. And I usually just work on 5 levels, and that's trainee, junior, senior, manager, and senior manager. So and you can apply that model to anything, to landscaper, to accountant, to what vehicle mechanic. You know, you come in day one, no experience, you're a trainee. And then once you finish your training, you're a junior. Once you've been a junior for a while, you go to senior. And the senior is a team leader. They know how to do everything. They can deliver the service. And then you've got the management levels where you pull someone off the tools and up to management. And then you got, you know, manager and senior manager. And you can keep going. A lot of these consulting agencies, the big 4, they have up to 12 levels within their system, where people, and they go all the way up to be, you know, senior director, partner, and they have all sorts of incentives. So if you can paint something like that for your people, you'll keep them long term and you'll grow an empire.
Yep, great. Yeah, career models are certainly a structured way of ensuring that the team know where they're heading, but also how they what they need to do to actually get to the next level in terms of experience and I guess loyalty. The best leaders are those who empower and develop their teams, trusting and delegating responsibilities. What are some of the common challenges leaders face when developing their teams into future leaders, and how can they be overcome?
This is a really good question. So I think one of the biggest problems that people have is trusting their staff to do the right thing. And again, this can be a real challenge, particularly if you've got a small business and you're recruiting people off the street. I am a big proponent of growing your own leaders from the ranks. You know, the Defence Force does that. There has not been a chief of the Army or chief of the Defence Force who didn't start as an officer cadet, and 40 years later they're running the show. You know, and that is how such a big organisation consistently delivers a very high standard of capability and results year in, year out, right? Because they grow their own leaders. And so if you were going to recruit somebody off the street into a leadership position, that's an enormous risk. Now, I can see people doing it. It gets done all the time. But your level of due diligence when you're recruiting someone for a leadership position, as opposed to recruiting someone for a technician worker bee job, is, you know, chalk and cheese. And you really need to have a very thorough recruitment process, a longer process, thorough checks, maybe bring them into an assistant manager's position at first for a period of time, and then put them up to the management job. Very strong conditions around the probation period, really, really important if you're going to do that. But ideally, you want to grow your own leaders. And when you grow your own leaders, they don't become leaders unless they've proven themselves ready to go to that next level. And that's how you can do it in a more stable way. The challenge there, though, is sometimes in a business is so small that you don't really have the scope to do that, and you will have to bring some people in externally. But I can tell you now, like, I used to have a boot camp program for kids, and I was looking for a general manager of that business to run it. And this guy came in and he talked the talk. You know, he said he had an MBA. He said he used to be a Navy clearance diver. He told great stories about how he'd worked in the Middle East, and then he'd come back and he'd done all this stuff. And I thought, this guy's brilliant. Not only has he got some military experience, but he's also got all this corporate experience and what have you. And anyway, so I hired this bloke. And then what I found out later, and he basically destroyed the joint. And what I found out later was that he was running roughshod over everybody, saying no one is to talk to Daimien directly. Everyone talks to me. And that was a way of him shutting down me finding out about anything going wrong. But also I found out that he had lied about his military background and a lot of other things And I confronted him, and he got very angry and aggressive. And I said, look, I just want you to provide some evidence to support your claims of your background.
Yep.
And he was unable to. And he, and did the usual thing that most people do when they get found out. They get angry and aggressive,
Yeah.
Rather than just playing the game. And so I fired him, but unfortunately the damage was done. So I learned that lesson the very hard way, that, sometimes people are going to come in, they're going to be chameleons, they're going to tell you everything you want to hear, right? They're going to be full of crap.
Yeah.
And so you've got to be very, very careful. Always prefer to grow your own leaders internally.
Yeah.
But if you do have to bring someone in externally, make sure you've got thorough due diligence. Does that answer your question?
It does. And it sort of leads on to the next part about leadership training, because great leaders lead by example and demonstrate the values and behaviours they want others to copy. But there needs to be some sort of form of training for the team to really understand what they need to do. How important is leadership training, and what are the most effective methods for delivering it in an organisation?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it's something that we're grappling with right now. Just like where we are right now, we have about 60 staff across 2 big businesses and 2 smaller businesses, and I'm seeing it now already. And I've had some external training come in, but I'm actually really focused now on building our own training now. Just as a slight tangent, the way the military does it.
Yep.
So when you join the military, at every promotion level, there is a leadership course to go and do.
Right.
And that leadership course is it's leadership, and then all the other stuff you need to know at that rank and level.
Yep.
But they revisit leadership regularly. So they have a course in the Army called the Subject 1 for Corporal. And the Corporal is the team leader rank, 2 stripes. That's all the team level leaders are corporals in the Army. And then they have the next course and the next course. So what I've been looking at going, well, in my business, it's important. I don't have people off the tools for too long. So how can I achieve that? And so what we're doing is we're developing 2 courses. One is a team leaders course, and the other is a managers course, which is for, if you're leading teams of teams, if you're leading team leaders, and the managers course. So, and there's an element of leadership training in each of those courses, but they are online courses. And then we're seeking to have some sort of practical package as well, where we can fly everyone in, maybe for even 3 or 4 days, and just have scenarios where they're all taking turns at being a leader.
Yeah.
And that I went to the Royal Military College, Duntroon, and that's the way they train their leaders there. They put them into sections and they take them out in the field, and they do infantry training, which is basic warfighting drills. But it's actually less about the warfighting drills, and it's more about developing the leaders. And everyone takes turns at being in charge and being the 2IC.
Yeah.
And then they rotate you through, and they literally yell at you, and they literally stand over you and to put pressure on you, And they give you a mission, and you got to go and get it done and with the team. And then they debrief you after every serial, and they go, right, Patterson, you're out. Bex, you're up next.
Yep.
And that's how you learn. So I want to try and do something like that. But the other way to do it, though, is just on the job counseling. So, if you've got a leader under you that you're trying to develop, then it's important that you're watching that person and you're keeping your ear to the ground about how their conduct and their leadership is affecting the workers in the team.
Yep.
And then you would debrief them regularly. So if you particularly got someone who's new to a leadership position, I would be talking to that person probably every 1 or 2 weeks, one-on-one, just while they find their feet, and mentoring them as a leader. Yep. But if you give them a package of theory training up front, get them to read that first, and or watch that, and maybe even do a theory test online, like an online course is great, and then go into that feedback cycle. I think you can grow some very good leaders that way. And there's some wonderful books out there that people can read as well. One is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's a bit of a classic. Yeah, and there's another one written by a really good-looking bloke that I just wrote called Real Leadership by Daimien Patterson.
Actually, I read that one the other day.
Yeah, so give it a plug, mate. But and so I developed that book for a number of reasons, but one is to be the basis of the team leaders course that we're doing as well. So, yeah,
that's a good idea.
But I think here's the thing, though, and I'll finish on this point. If you don't have any leadership training at all, don't be surprised if you've got poor leaders in your business, including yourself. And if you are the leader, I remember at that conference in Cebu,
Yep.
I asked that question, who here is the leader of their business? And all but 2 people put their hand up. And then I said, right, put your hand up if you think you're a good leader. And no more than a third of the room put their hand up. And I said, well, this is a problem. We've got poor leaders leading your businesses. And everyone just kind of, you could hear a pin drop when everyone realized, okay, this is something I need to do something about.
That's right. I think a lot of people sort of fall into the role of leaders once they start hiring, and they don't realize that that's a skill that they really have to get training on and learn about.
Absolutely.
What are some of the practical strategies for motivating a workforce and increasing overall productivity? Because money, whilst it'll only go so far, it's not the be-all and end-all of getting people motivated.
Yeah, look, this is a great question. How do you motivate people beyond money? And there's actually a lot you can do. And it's really that human level. And a lot of people really, just recognition alone goes so far, right? So a couple of things come to mind. Napoleon said that a soldier will march 1,000 miles for a piece of ribbon. And what he's obviously referring to is a medal, for recognition that they were in that campaign or they did that sort of thing. So I think people need to not underestimate what we would call the soft skills side of that. And, we should have some sort of reward system. Now, in my companies, we have an annual conference. And at that annual conference, we have a black tie ball. And at the black tie ball, we have awards, right?
Before you go much further, can you just explain to the listeners where your team are located? Because I think it's important for them to understand that they're not all Australian-based.
They're all around the world, that's right. So I've got Filipinos. I've got about 10 people in the Philippines. I've got 1 person in New Zealand. I've got a heap in South Africa and a heap in Australia. And basically that's the outsource. My whole approach is, if software can do it, get software to do it. If it can't be done by software, get a Filipino to do it. If it's beyond a Filipino because of cultural or language barriers, then get a South African to do it. And if you can't get a South African to do it because there's some sort of physical requirement or must be in Australia, get an Australian to do it. And that model has literally saved me millions of dollars in wages, but also allowed me to grow my businesses such that I'm employing more Australians now because my business is profitable and growing. So there's always going to be things that must be done locally for whatever reason, because there's a physical requirement or there's a legislative requirement for it to be Australian on the ground doing it. But so one of the things that we do to maintain that is we have an annual conference. So we have the awards night at the annual conference. And the rule there is you have to work for the company for 6 months to be eligible to go to the conference.
Okay.
Yeah, so that also keeps them in. But then it's a big incentive every year for people to stay with the company. It's a retention. It's like, well, if I stick around till next year, I'll get to go to the conference, And so actually just next week, I'm flying off to South Africa. We're running our conference there this year, and there'll be, I think, 11 Australians and 4 of the 10 Filipinos flying there, and the majority of the staff the South Africans are there already, of course. So that's interesting. But coming back to your question,
it's a pretty significant incentive to attend, though, isn't it? And to be motivated. Yeah.
And the benefit that it has on retention and morale, productivity, interpersonal relationships, and it's just all through the roof. It's night and day. Yeah. But coming back to your point about what soft skill things can we do to motivate people, like recognition is really important. And there's a couple of little things we do. Every Friday we have an end of week meeting, which only goes for half an hour, and everyone's online, and everyone has to give like a 15, 20 second little report. And one of the things they have to do in their little report is to give a shout out. And the shout outs are to someone who's done something good. And everyone must give a shout out. So it forces them to look for good, look for the positive things that are happening in the business. Yeah, really powerful. And then the other thing that I was taught as a young cadet about leadership was to give people a reputation to live up to. And this is really, really powerful. So if you've got someone who's not that great, then what you can do is you can go to them and you can say, listen, this is what I know about you. I know that you are particularly good at this and particularly good at that. And when people ask me about you, I say that you're my person who does this, and you're the best. And then straight away they go, oh wow, I didn't know that you thought that of me. And then they go, that's a positive. Wow, I don't want to lose that reputation, right?
Yeah.
So you give them a reputation to live up to. Right? And then you can take that to the next level and paint a vision about the person that you would then want them to grow to as well. Say, this is my vision for you. I want you to be at this position doing these things, and I want to be able to say this about you. What do you think of that? Would you like to become that person too? And then of course they're going to say yes, because they're like, wow, there's someone who believes in me, someone who's got a vision for me, who shares my own goals of being a success. And they're saying to me they want to help me get there. Wow. And and so just those small things alone can make a massive difference to how much motivation your staff have got. And if we come back to the leadership definition, which is the art of getting the willful, obedience or fellowship to achieve the goal, well, you're going to give them a piece of the puzzle, whatever that team or organizational goal is. You're going to give them, say, that piece of that puzzle, that piece of the vision, that piece of the objective, that's what you're going to conquer for us. I see you capturing that part of the hill, and then people are like, right, let's go. It's so powerful, and there is a lot you can do as a leader to get more out of people. So if you're suffering a retention problem in your business, if you've got a morale problem, if you've got toxicity in your workplace, things like that, then it's actually you, and a lot of people find that very confronting, but it's actually you, because leadership is actually more about the proactivity and the conditions you set and the culture you build that then guides and shapes future behavior. Right. So it's not about reacting to bad behavior. That's discipline, right? It's about shaping future behavior. And if you can be that person who they know you care, you've got an inspiring vision for the organization, and you've got an inspiring vision for them, for their part that they're going to achieve. And then you watch, you'll just turn the place around really quickly.
Final question, we sort of touched on where you mentioned about using software if it can solve certain elements of the business's problems that are repetitive and monotonous, I guess. In what ways can technology and software support leadership development and team productivity?
Well, wow, great question. So I'm very excited about AI and all of these different things, but your question is more specific about leadership. So one of the areas that we're using software extremely effectively is online training, not to build products to sell externally, but to train individual staff. And I'll give you an example right now. If you join my property investment company as a trainee property investment consultant, we have a career model for you with the 5 levels. And in your first month, you'll do 4 online courses. And the first course is induction course, which everyone does. It's like recruit training when you join the army. If you join Damo's army, you've got to do induction training, right? That's 20 hours of content, take you about a week to knock over with the other stuff you've got to do. And then there's a sales mastery course. There's a property investment course, which is product knowledge, learning. And then there's a property investment consultants course, which is procedure training, how we do every step of our process, right? That takes about a month. Now, there is probably about 100 hours of content delivered every time we onboard a new consultant. Now, think of that as a leverage thing, right? And if I actually did it the old-fashioned way, which would be to have live training,
one-on-one
instructor, and and one-on-one, probably if I recruited 3 people at the time, maybe I could achieve a 1 in 3. But then over and over again, how much of a manpower saving is it to invest in building these online courses that you can then, every new person you onboard just does that. Now, that online training, it's theory training, it's only going to get them 60, 70, 80% of the way, depending on what it is. You're still going to need to have that on-the-job training or what have you. But that's where you have your team structure, where people enter the team as a junior member and get mentored by the senior member. And so the same thing applies if you want to build leaders. So I think the very first place to start from a leadership perspective is to have some online courses that teach people leadership skills.
Yeah.
And because the leadership theory is probably 60 to 70% of the battle. So find the online courses and do it. And I wish I could say to you right now that my online course was fully built and ready to go, but it will be in the future.
Yeah.
But there are things out there that you can do, of course, already. And the other one too, I guess, I mean, you can get them to read the books. You can task them to read books, but software in terms of online training is so easy to build now. Like, they've got these platforms like Techmatics and Kajabi and things like that, and they're user friendly. You just build a course, press a button, yes, and then it says create a lesson, and you go, what do you want to call it? And you just fill it in, and then upload the video presentation. And we even pull videos off YouTube that other complete strangers have made already. And we just watch that and go, yep, that does the job, embed that. But then most importantly, we have exams in there to make sure. And so the system will then monitor whether your staff member has indeed watched the whole video.
Right.
And can give them an automated multiple choice exam to confirm that they actually have taken in the knowledge.
Yeah.
I think the software for leadership development, online courses are definitely where it's at. But also things like your performance appraisal process when you're giving people feedback. You should have feedback loops, online surveys where people can employee satisfaction, and then you might have a team leader who's got 5 people underneath them, and you go and read the surveys that those 5 people wrote, you've got a problem, So there are other ways that we can leverage software to help us track and monitor the effectiveness of people's leadership as well.
Yep. One of the things that we learnt recently with AI is you can actually build an AI tool that allows you to get feedback on your interviewing process or your coaching or your mentorship, and it'll rank it against the criteria that is set. And that's another important way where AI now is going to be involved in training your future leaders. Something we only learned about last week. So it's really exciting time.
And AI is just getting better and better. And I think that's the thing that people, again, it's going to get you a percentage of the way. I find I've been using AI for all sorts of things. I think it's a really good business advisor. Like if you want some ideas or what's the best practice for doing this, and then it's in 5 seconds you've got it. And I've just been blown away every time I do it. So definitely.
Damo, for listeners who want to learn more about how to develop and build their leadership skills for themselves and their key people, what resources have you got that they could check out?
So you can download the book Real Leadership, the electronic copy, and we do have, as we speak, a container load of books on their way. A pallet inside a container, but you can go to DaimienPatterson.com with the correct spelling, with the 2 I's, and on that website you can download an electronic copy of that book, and you can also order a hard copy of the book. I'm also available to come and speak. I do speak on stages, and I'll also come to a business and speak on leadership. And also consult with the management, talk to the management about how they can do better with their leadership skills. So I'm available to do that, and I really enjoy that. I'm very passionate about it, as you can probably tell. And hopefully when I do come and speak to you guys, whoever takes that opportunity, I won't have a croaky voice like I've got today.
Fantastic. And finally, what is one piece of actionable advice you would give to any business owner who wants to learn more about leadership?
Allocate the time to do it. I say to people, if it's not in my diary, it doesn't happen. So whether you just put an hour a week where you're going to watch YouTube videos on leadership, or whether you're going to find a course online and then allocate the time to do it, but you need to allocate the time. If you don't think you're a good leader, then you're probably not. And you just need to do something about it. And leaders are not born, they're made. And babies cannot lead. They can't even talk and walk, right? Their leadership skills are developed. And everyone, no matter whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, you can still be a very good leader. And being a good leader is not about being vocal and being able to speak loudly. And it's actually not about that. It's about emotional intelligence and considering the needs of each individual person and making that person feel valued, appreciated, paint a vision that they can aspire to and be motivated towards. And that's what leadership's about. And you don't need to be a yeller and screamer to be a good leader if you approach it that way.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with our chasers, Damo, and for being part of our podcast.
Been an honour and privilege.
Thank you for listening. I'm Chris Becks, and I look forward to presenting our next episode to you real soon.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the Chasers channel, we would love you to share it with your business friends and colleagues, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from CBEX Business Solutions for Good, follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/CBEX, Instagram at CBEX, and on the internet at cbex.com. Thanks again, and we'll be sharing new info with you on our next episode.